4 companies are spending more money on construction in 2026 than the entire 5-year federal highway budget.
Which is just, it's staggering.
It really is. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta are dropping a combined like $660 to $690 billion in a single year. And it's all on AI infrastructure.
Right. And when you look at that number, you realize it fundamentally breaks our traditional models of how capital moves through the built environment. It's basically a financial tidal wave.
Welcome to this deep dive for the Scaling Legends podcast. I'm Justine.
And I'm Nicole.
And today we have a very specific mission. Because the construction industry right now is, it's actively splitting in two.
Yeah, severe bifurcation.
Exactly. So we're going to map exactly where this nearly $700 billion is flowing. But more importantly, we're going to break down the mechanics of how contractors at every single tier can actually capture their share of this concentrated boon. We're not just talking about the massive mega builders here.
No, not at all. And I want to speak directly to you listening right now. Because whether you are, a local mechanical subcontractor, a civil works firm, or a regional general contractor, understanding this new map is literally the difference between struggling to fill your backlog and riding the biggest infrastructure wave of our lifetime.
The money is absolutely there.
It is, but the way you bid on it has completely changed.
Right. So let's start with a reality check because I want to play the voice of our audience for a second.
Go for it.
If there is a staggering $700 billion flowing into the construction market, why is my inbox just full of messages from mid-sized commercial and residential contractors telling me they're starving for work?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Like, why are their phones dead? It feels like a massive contradiction,
It does. It absolutely feels like a contradiction until you look at the mechanics of who is actually funding construction right now. We aren't experiencing like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of boom.
Yeah.
We're looking at a severe, unprecedented market split. To understand why your phone isn't ringing, we have to look at the ENR Top 425 owners data.
Okay.
Overall, total construction in progress is up 12.5%, but that average is a complete lie because of how heavily it's skewed at the very top.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The top 10 owners on that list, so the hyperscalers, the major institutional players, their spending is up an explosive 21.8%.
So the giants are just accelerating.
Rapidly. But then, if you look at the bottom 100 owners on that exact same list, we're talking about small regional developers, municipal commercial projects, private commercial developers. Their spending is down 8.2%.
Wow.
Yeah. Private non-residential construction has been contracting for over 4 consecutive months, and residential is down 9%.
I think we need to explain the why behind that split. Like, why is the everyday developer pulling back so hard while the tech giants are just doubling down?
It largely comes down to the cost of capital. Interest rates have been sitting higher than they were over the last decade. So if you're a mid-sized private developer trying to finance, say, a new 5-story mixed-use commercial space, the cost to borrow that money is just crushing your profit margins.
So you shelve the project.
Exactly. You wait. But if you are Meta or Google, you're sitting on tens of billions in liquid cash reserves. You don't care about the prime interest rate in the same way. You don't need a loan to build. You just deploy capital.
Which leaves the contractors who historically built those 5-story commercial spaces fighting each other for a shrinking pie.
Yeah, driving their bids down to zero margin territory just to keep their crews working.
Meanwhile, the contractors serving the top 10 are booming to the point of absolute capacity breakdown.
Precisely. Let's look at the hyperscaler capital expenditure projections just for a sense of scale. Amazon is allocating roughly $200 billion.
That's insane.
Google is slated for $175 to $185 billion. Meta is spending $115 to $135 billion. And Microsoft is dropping over $120 billion.
Yeah, and according to Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report, this consolidated spending by the top 10 is completely warping the supply chain.
Oh, entirely.
We're talking about 4 private companies outspending the entire federal highway allocation, which, by the way, was $350 billion spread over 5 whole years. They're doing it in just 12 months.
And that concentration of wealth explains the localized extreme inflation we're seeing in very specific construction materials.
Like what?
Well, when 4 entities have more capital to deploy than the federal government, they command the global supply chain. If you need switchgear, high-grade concrete, structural steel, or copper wire, the hyperscalers get first in line.
Wow. So everyone else just waits.
Everyone else either waits 80 weeks for delivery or pays a massive premium.
Okay, so these top 10 owners are hoarding all the capital and basically vacuuming up the materials.
Yeah.
The natural next question is, what exactly are they physically building? Because almost $700 billion buys a lot more than just a few windowless server warehouses.
It definitely does.
I was thinking about this earlier. Think of a massive $27 billion data center, like Meta's Hyperion project. Not as a building, but as an aircraft carrier.
Ooh, that's an incredibly accurate way to model it. Expand on that a bit.
Well, the aircraft carrier itself is this massive multi-billion-dollar marvel of engineering.
Right.
But you don't just drop an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean and call it a day. It's completely useless and honestly vulnerable without an entire strike group.
Yeah, it needs support.
Exactly. It needs a fleet of destroyer vessels to protect it, supply ships to bring it food and aviation fuel, and massive onshore infrastructure like dry docks, specialized housing for military families, supply depots. The carrier is just the anchor for a massive localized economy.
I love that analogy. And you don't just drop a 300 megawatt data center in a cornfield in Ohio and turn the lights on.
Right.
The surrounding ecosystem required to keep that single box operational is staggering. Let's break down the strike group for a data center, starting with power generation. Power is the absolute lifeblood of AI. Right now, total data center power demand in the US is sitting at about 47 gigawatts. By 2035, that's projected to hit 176 gigawatts.
Wait, that is a 3.7 times increase in less than a decade.
Yes.
And just to give people a sense of scale, 1 single gigawatt is roughly the total output of a massive nuclear reactor.
Exactly.
But why the sudden jump? Why does AI require so much more electricity than the cloud computing we've been doing for the last, 15 years?
It's the difference between fetching a book and writing a book.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, traditional cloud servers process requests sequentially. You click a video, the server fetches the file and sends it to you. It's relatively low energy.
Makes sense.
But AI training, especially large language models, requires thousands of highly advanced GPUs to fire simultaneously and nonstop for weeks or months on end to calculate probabilities.
So it's just a constant draw.
An immense continuous electrical load.
So we suddenly need dozens of new power plants just for these servers.
Exactly. And that creates a $176 billion construction pipeline in nuclear small modular reactors, or SMRs.
Which are what, exactly?
They're essentially factory-built, scaled-down nuclear plants. And we're also seeing a massive wave in natural gas plant construction. Like, there's a $73 billion wave in Japan right now, serving as a global leading indicator.
Wow.
But generating the power is only half the battle. You have to move it.
Right.
That translates to a $1.4 trillion with a T construction wave for electrical grid upgrades.
Just to move the electricity from the newly built power plant to the newly built server farm.
Yes. The transmission and distribution sector is experiencing an unprecedented boom. I mean, we're seeing specific massive civil engineering deals signed right now.
Like where?
There's a 2 gigawatt transmission deal in San Jose. PG&E has a $2.6 billion South Bay project to upgrade local grid capacity. LS Power recently won a bid for a transmission project spanning over 780 miles.
It's huge.
Trenching, running lines, building substations, that is all heavy construction work.
And if power is the lifeblood of these facilities, water is the sweat, right? Because once you draw all that electricity into thousands of GPUs, they generate a terrifying amount of heat.
Which brings us to the silent giant of this boom, water infrastructure. Traditional air conditioning literally cannot handle the heat density of an AI server rack.
So what do they use?
They require advanced liquid cooling, pumping chilled water directly through the facility. Xylem, they're a major water technology company, predicts a 129% increase in AI-related water use by 2050.
So a tech giant moves into a county, and suddenly the local municipal water system just cannot handle the load.
Exactly. To get the permit to build the data center in the first place, the tech companies are having to fund massive expansions of municipal water treatment plants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, specialized cooling towers, massive underground piping networks, and pump stations. It is an entirely separate civil construction boom trailing right behind the power boom.
You know, looking at the geographic heat map in Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, this is completely physically decentralized.
Yes, it is.
It's not just happening in Silicon Valley. The capital originates in California or Seattle, but the physical concrete is being poured in Virginia, Texas, Ohio, Arizona, Georgia, and Iowa.
Which brings us to the most critical part of this deep dive. If the money is physically entering your region, how do you actually get a piece of it?
Right. Because knowing this massive trillion-dollar ecosystem exists is great theory. But let's be totally honest with the listener. 99% of construction firms listening to us right now cannot bid on a $3 billion hyperscale data center.
No, they can't.
The sheer financial mechanics make it impossible.
Let's talk about the barrier to entry there. It comes down to bonding capacity. To bid on a multi-billion-dollar project, you need a surety bond guaranteeing the project will be finished even if you go bankrupt.
Right.
To get that bond, you need a corporate balance sheet that rivals a small nation.
Which most don't have.
Plus, the tech giants' internal procurement teams have impossibly strict pre-qualification standards, and they demand a flawless multi-year safety record.
So for most contractors, building the data center itself is just off the table. But this is where we have to shift our perspective from building the aircraft carrier to building the strike group.
Yes.
Walk me through how a mid-sized contractor actually pivots their business to capture this money.
Okay, we can break the entire ecosystem down into 5 distinct tiers of entry.
Let's do it.
Tier 1 is the direct tier. As we just discussed, this is building the actual box. That is reserved for the ENR top 50 mega builders.
Got it.
But Tier 2 is where the market abruptly opens up. Tier 2 is the support tier. Think about the municipal infrastructure required around the campuses.
Okay, yeah.
When a project brings in thousands of temporary construction workers and eventually hundreds of highly paid permanent tech engineers, what does that local area suddenly need?
Housing, roads, infrastructure.
Exactly. Say you are a commercial builder in Ohio, right? You're used to building strip malls. You don't bid on the data center. But you look at the map and realize that a rural town of 10,000 people suddenly needs 500 new homes, a widened state route, 3 new fire stations, and local fiber optic lines to support the influx.
Wow, yeah.
The barrier to entry here is normal. You aren't contracting with Meta. You are contracting with the regional private developers who bought land near the tech campus, or the municipality that just got a massive tax influx.
That is incredibly actionable. You basically pivot your business development team to track where the hyperscalers are breaking ground.
Yes.
And then you fiercely target the local private developers and municipal boards circling that specific wagon.
Oh.
Okay, so what's the next entry point?
Tier 3 is a supply chain. This is for the specialty trades. You don't have to be the general contractor.
Oh.
Are you a regional concrete contractor? Do you fabricate structural steel? Are you a specialized mechanical or electrical firm?
Right.
These massive sites are vacuuming up specialty trades. The Tier 1 mega builders are terrified of schedule slips. If the specialized cooling pipe doesn't arrive on site, a $3 billion project stalls.
Oh, and they can't afford that.
Exactly. So the Tier 1 GCs don't want to manage 100 tiny material suppliers. They are desperate to hand massive subcontracts to regional firms that have established reliable local supply chains.
So you just have to prove to the Tier 1 builder that you have the local labor and the local materials to guarantee their timeline.
Precisely. Moving outward, Tier 4 is power. We discussed the grid upgrades earlier. This is a massive entry point for civil contractors.
Because every new data center requires a dedicated substation, right?
Yes, and it requires miles of trenching for new high voltage lines. Local and regional utility companies are receiving massive capital injections to build this out, and they are hiring civil contractors desperately to meet the demand.
And finally, Tier 5 would be the water infrastructure we touched on.
Yes. Upgrading the municipal water treatment facility or laying large diameter cooling pipelines. Again, you might be signing a contract with the local county water authority, not Google.
Right.
But Google's arrival is what entirely funded the county's $50 million expansion project.
I really want to hammer this takeaway home for the listener. You do not need to build the data center itself to get rich during the AI boom.
Absolutely not.
You just have to build the roads, the pipes, or the grid that makes the data center physically possible to operate. You're bidding on the ecosystem.
But I want to challenge us to keep our feet on the ground here. Pivoting your entire business model away from traditional commercial real estate to chase Tier 2 or Tier 3 AI support work carries severe risks.
Oh, for sure. Let's unpack the bottlenecks that could derail a contractor trying to make this leap.
Let's start with the macro risks. The biggest one seems to be the geographical concentration and the power bottlenecks you mentioned.
Right, because these projects are hyper-concentrated in a handful of states. And because of that gold rush, the local power grids are buckling under the sheer weight of the permit requests.
Right. Look at the PJM power queue. PJM is the regional transmission organization that coordinates the movement of wholesale electricity across 13 eastern and midwestern states. Right now, their queue just to review and approve a connection to the grid is backed up 3 to 5 years.
Wait, 3 to 5 years just to get the administrative approval to draw power?
Yes, there are multi-billion-dollar data center projects completely built sitting empty because they physically cannot get permission to pull power from the grid yet.
That is wild.
The other macro risk is technological. What if the massive capital expenditures we're seeing right now suddenly slow down because the software evolves?
You know, I was actually reading with us DeepSeek, they're an AI research company. They recently demonstrated that AI training and operational costs can actually drop dramatically through sheer software optimization.
Exactly. If the algorithms get vastly more efficient, they require fewer calculations. Fewer calculations mean fewer GPUs.
Right.
Fewer GPUs mean less heat, less power, and ultimately a smaller physical footprint. If software optimization outpaces hardware demands, the tech companies might not need as many mega campuses as they're currently projecting.
We've seen hyperscalers panic and cancel or delay data center projects before, like during the 2022 to 2023 tech slowdown.
We have.
That software evolution is a fascinating wild card, but I have to push back with the immediate reality on the ground.
Okay, let's hear it.
According to Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, the $660 to $690 billion slated for 2026 alone is not speculative projection. It is already committed capital.
Right, that's true.
The land is purchased, the contracts are inked, the equipment is ordered. While software might shrink the 2030 projections, the 2026 construction boom is completely locked in.
That is a critical distinction. The short to medium term runway is solid concrete. But that brings us to the micro risk.
What's the micro risk?
The real threat to the contractor listening right now isn't that AI software gets 10% more efficient in 5 years. The real threat is that they successfully pivot into this ecosystem, win a massive contract, and then literally choke to death on the administrative scale of the project.
Yes. We just talked about a $1.4 trillion macroeconomic wave. But here is the brutal reality of construction. Trillion-dollar waves break down into millions of tiny physical pieces of paper.
They absolutely do.
Let's say you take your local utility contracting firm, you pivot, and you land a $40 million data center cooling water pipeline. You just scaled up exponentially. If you try to manage that with your old spreadsheets and chaotic email threads, you will fail.
It is the silent killer of growing construction firms. The administrative burden doesn't scale linearly with the project cost. It scales exponentially because of the compliance requirements.
Think about an RFI, a request for information. If you were building a local strip mall, an RFI might be a quick email to the architect about a door frame.
Right, super simple.
But when you're building municipal water infrastructure for a hyperscaler, an RFI involves the regional utility company, the local government inspectors, the tier 1 general contractor, and the tech company's internal engineering team.
And the spec books are thousands of pages long.
Counts.
If your project management team misses one minor compliance detail on a submittal, you might install the wrong grade of valves. And on a tech campus, they don't let you just patch it and move on.
No, they force you to tear out the entire line and rebuild it.
Exactly. That is $1 million margin wipeout because your team mismanaged a PDF.
Which is exactly why AI platforms actually become the necessary tool to build the physical AI infrastructure.
Yeah, full circle.
If you want to scale up into tier 2 or tier 3 work, you have to modernize your back office before you modernize the power grid. Platforms like Smart Business Automator are essential here. They use AI to ingest all that unstructured data. They turn a foreman's rambling voice notes into concise, formatted daily log summaries. They auto-tag field photos to specific RFIs so your project managers aren't spending 4 hours a day acting as highly paid file clerks.
Most importantly, they automate the compliance checking against those massive spec books. Having a system that automatically verifies your submittals against the engineer's requirements allows a mid-sized project manager to handle hyperscaler scale without dropping the ball.
So as we wrap up, we need to distill what this paradigm shift really means for the listener.
Right.
We've mapped the capital, we've broken down the entry points, and we've exposed the bottlenecks. But I want to leave you with a different angle to mull over, something we haven't touched on yet. The impending talent war.
Oh, that is the unseen horizon here.
Yeah.
If you pivot your firm to bid on the AI ecosystem, you need to realize your biggest competitor for skilled tradesmen won't just be other local contractors, it will be the tech giants themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Once these massive data centers are built, they don't run themselves. They require armies of highly skilled permanent maintenance technicians, electrical engineers, HVAC specialists, pipe fitters. And tech companies pay incredibly well with full corporate benefits.
That completely flips the script. You aren't just competing for the contract. You're going to have to structurally rethink how you compensate and retain your core field leaders. Or they will simply leave to go work directly for the data center you just helped build.
Exactly. The local road widening, the municipal water treatment upgrade, or the substation expansion in your backyard is an AI project in disguise.
Right.
The question is, are you ready to bid on the ecosystem? And are you prepared for how that ecosystem will permanently change your local labor market?
If you know a contractor who is dealing with a shrinking commercial backlog right now, trying to figure out why the phone isn't ringing, send them this deep dive. It could completely shift their entire business strategy toward the AI ecosystem and literally save their firm. Hit follow on whatever app you're listening on so you don't miss tomorrow's intel. And to see how you can scale your operations to handle these massive ecosystem projects without drowning in administrative work, visit smartbusinessautomator.com. Let's get out there and build the Strike Group.